Can you hear me?
Check.
All right.
Right. Thank you for being here. I know it's almost the end of Trailhead DX, but just bear with us for one more session.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
Calvin,
welcome to advanced needleworking. Hope everybody brought your needles in your yarn. If not, pull them out. I'm just messing with you guys.
Yeah, we're just kidding. Our topic today is how to build an immersive community using Lightning components and flows. So, something about us, I'm Heyman Javle. I'm part of the ISV technical evangelist team. So what we do at Salesforce is we work with our ISV partners. We advise them on how to build efficiently on our platform, how to get the best out of our platform, so all those good things. I used to be on the CSG side before for 2 years, but then I moved to the ISV side.
All right. Thanks for the introduction, Hawat. My name is Calvin. I am also a ISV technical evangelist. Before that, I was a developer, R&D developer on the Apex Hammer testing utility. So I'm sure a lot of you guys are developers. What we did is we ran all your test cases and all your test code, make sure that we didn't break any code on each release, such that we maintain our integrity and trust throughout the platform. So I'm happy to be here to talk to you guys about building communities and using flows.
Yep. Enough about us. So this is a slide that you must not have seen today or tomorrow, but it's important. We are a publicly traded company, so base all your decision on generally available functionality and not any forward-looking statements that we might make. So we just want to take a moment and say thank you. Thank you for being part of Trailhead DX. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate your support. We wouldn't be here unless it was for your customers, trailblazers, admins, and everyone. So thank you. So this is how our presentation is going to unfold. We'll start with talking about some basic concepts that we have used in our demo. After that, we'll jump right into the demo, which would be a major part of our presentation. So that's always good. And then we'll end up by talking about best practices and any recommendations that we have for you. Community Cloud? Yeah, there we go. So how many of you all have used communities before or have, oh, quite a lot.
Quite a few.
That makes my job easier. I don't have to go deeper into the slides. But yeah, what communities are is, let's say you have your own CRM functionality built out. You have your object model. You have all your business processes on Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud. And let's say you want to interface those in sort of your own version of websites where your customers, your partners, your employees can access that information and work with your CRM data. So communities allows you to do that. And when we talk about communities, there's something called a community builder, which helps you build those communities. So what community builder is, like I like to draw a parallel where let's say you are developing an Apex code, you usually use Eclipse IDE or some sort of an IDE. So this is our own version of an IDE for communities. So with the builder, you have access to certain things like the branding panel. You can drag and drop components. You don't have to be a full developer to be, let's say you want to go crazy and write CSS code or HTML. But here you have similar functionality which even an admin can use. They can do CMS Connect. They can do dynamic theming and audience targeting. So audience targeting, that's one of the features that comes out of the box with Lightning Communities and Community Builder. So what audience targeting is, let's say we have our favorite characters looking for some food. Cody Bear obviously wants where the berries are. He needs to know, no, I need some berries now, so where do I go for that? Let's say if Cloudy is logging in, he's concerned about where do I get my grass, whereas Appy is more concerned about fish. So you can have your communities brand accordingly to your users, so they only get the content that they are interested about. Lightning Bolt. So let's say you've built your community solution, you've used all these tools out of the box. Let me ask, how many of you are ISV partners or SI partners? Oh, we have a few. So if you know there hasn't been a good technology out there till now, which will allow you to package your community solutions. But with Lightning Bolt solutions, what you can do is you can use your custom components, you can use your custom apps, all the processes that you've built, and put them in a package. And then you can put a managed package on App Exchange and distribute it to your customers.
All right. So how many of you guys have heard of Lightning Components? Right? Almost everybody, hopefully. If you don't, I'll tell you more about it. So Lightning Components. Components are these components that you can build once and for all on the platform. You build a Lightning component and you embed it inside of the opportunity record page. It also works inherently out of the box inside of your communities. And I made this happen without it making any modification to my code. And that's the power of the platform. You build a Lightning component, and it will run on Sales, Service Cloud, Marketing, Community Cloud, Commerce, IoT, and Quip. It's the beauty of the platform. You build once and for all. All right, the next technology I want to talk to you guys about is Lightning Flow. How many of you guys have used Flow Process Builder? Right, a few? Well, great thing is you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Flow automation works very similar to what you're used to. Flow automation is just used to survey and capture data from your users. And you start this process by building out your process. The first step is you want to define what you want to get from your users. You want to define what you want your users to see, and you kind of want to think about what kind of decision-making steps that they want to go through. And that's this first step, is you would use the Flow Process Builder to define your application logic and to kind of lay out the framework of what you're going to get from your users. Following that, you want to then design your screens and UI, and this is the step where you embed Lightning components inside of your Flow processes. So this is the parts where you add multimedia, any text, any wave analytics graphs, and pretty much anything that our platform offers. This is the step where you embed it into your process. And finally, after you have all that done, then you automate every interaction. You add what you just built in step 1 and 2 inside of your apps, your portals, your console, your communities, pretty much anywhere inside of the platform that supports Lightning components. It will support Flow automation tools and your embedded Lightning components inside of it. All right, this is the fun part. I'm sure you guys are all here for the demo. This is the best part of the presentation. All right, so Hemant and I have built a very simple, very standard customer community. This is our landing page. We have a community where your hypothetical company can use to interact with their users and to kind of allow them to have a portal where they can log in and make any discussions or ask any questions that they have about your product. So on the left-hand side, we have a component that shows off your chatter feed. This component shows off the posts that you follow, the posts that you've made, and kind of any activity that you have done on your community. On the upper right-hand side of the screen, we have a leaderboard. This leaderboard is used to show who is the most active users, who has contributed most to the community, and it kind of serves as almost like a driving factor for your community users to be more interactive inside your community. Following that, we have a flow automation tool, and this is something that we're using to allow the user to submit cases and to kind of ask any questions and to reach out to us as a community admin. Hemant will tell you more about that in a second. And then finally, we have a Salesforce Files, which is on the bottom right-hand corner. And this is where you can use to distribute any material, any pictures, any images, any PDFs, or anything that you want your community users to see, and any marketing material that you want them to take up.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but Astro is a huge fan of Star Wars. I know Mark Hamill is going to speak after this, so Astro needs an Expo Pass, and we have a problem here. So we'll log a case for that. So what Astro can do is he can come here to the community and say, I'm looking for something. We just put in a subject, TDX Pass, high priority. So needs to go to the dark side. We do next. And we are greeted with a message that your response has been recorded. So we say finish. So what happened is it created a case on the back end. So let's see if we refresh our case list. The case should show up. And you see, with a simple flow, we automated the process of creating a case. So let's see how that looks in the flow builder. So I'm here in the case builder. Case create is the flow that I've created. We'll go through each of the steps of the progression of the flow really quickly. So you see we have certain elements here, or components that we call them. The first one is a welcome screen. So we basically greet our user saying, are you looking for something? Or you can customize this saying log a case or anything that you want. So after we greet the user, the next screen is where we capture the information and some input fields. So you can see subject, priority are required input fields. We have one more for description. The next step in this progression is to create a case. So we have an element which allows you to automate and create and do DML statements. So this particular one is for creating an object. So we can drag and drop and say, I want to create a case. And the input fields that we had used in our previous step, you can use them here to assign the values to the case fields. And after assigning everything, this element takes care of creating the case, and we greet the user with a screen finish screen. So you saw that it was a pretty simple flow, but it was very powerful to automate something in our community.
Right, thank you for that, Hamad. So this is great. This is a great portal for your users to see, but we understand that a lot of this information may be sensitive. You don't want all your public users. You don't want someone who isn't logged in to see all this information. So let's take a look at what this community looks like inside of as a non-logged in user. So we have a incognito window open, and obviously we haven't logged in yet. And you can see that we've scrubbed away all the information that we don't want a non-logged in user to see. Instead of seeing a Lightning component that shows all your chatter feed records and your files, we've kind of swapped that out for a Lightning component that tells you that you aren't logged in. Please log in for a personalized experience. So some of you guys may be wondering, what's going on? So let me show you that. So if we go into our community builder, the first thing I want you to see is on the upper portion of the screen, it says, this page contains components that are visible only to specific audiences. And what we've done is that we've modified each of these components and made it so that they're targeted to certain audiences. So if you take a look at the Please Login banner, you'll notice that there is a purple box around it. And that means that we've assigned an audience target to it. So if we click into it and take a look at the profile, you can see that we've assigned that to be visible only to the unauthenticated user. Conversely, we've also done the same thing to the other components on our community, but we've done the inverse. Instead of scrubbing it away, we only want to make these components visible to our authenticated users. Users that have access as a Community Plus user or a customer community user will only be able to see this page. Right, so that's one way of building out your community such that you select which components are visible and you are able to control visibility of certain components. But we understand that that's only one way that you can do things. What if you wanted to change the page layout, or you wanted to change how what images, or even the entire look and feel of the community? There is another way that you can control access to your community, and this is through page-level audience targeting. So if we go into our stock page, this is a page that we've built out to represent a stock page that your investors can use to kind of keep tabs and keep track of how your company is doing. Obviously, again, you don't want your non-authenticated users to see all the sensitive information. We understand that, so we'll teach you how to set that page-level targeting. But we want to show you how each of these components are dynamic. We want to show you that these components all have context of the current user. So on the upper portion of the screen, you'll notice that there's a banner that says, Welcome Hemant, and that is pulling in directly from the user record, and this is assuming that the user is logged in. On the left-hand side, we have a company news profile feed that shows you information about your company. Right now, we have it set to automotive news. We can show you in a second on how you can customize that. As well as on the right-hand side, we have a stock information component that pulls in live data. And in this case, we've set it to sales versus stock price. And it shows you interactive information and information that's constantly updated such that your investors get the latest information. And following that, we have a small media tile that shows off any videos, any content, anything that you want to embed inside of your community. Yeah. All right, so let's take a look at what this flow looks like for the non-authenticated user. All right, very similar. You can see that we've scrubbed away a lot of the data. Instead, you are, again, seeing a component that tells you to log in. But instead of scrubbing away the newsfeed component completely, I've used FLS and used best practices to develop these apps to scrub away only the data that is visible to the non-authenticated user. So instead of seeing details about your your headlines, we're only showing the headlines that are relevant to a non-authenticated user. If they want to see more, they can obviously log in and take a look at what else is happening in the company.
Right. Let's go back to the builder and see how we have done the page level audience targeting. So in our builder, let's go to our stock page. And immediately you can notice that it says this time that this page is visible only to unauthenticated user. So if I go here, there are two drop down. It says there are page variations. So page variations are your audience level targeting at the page level. So you can define an audience to your pages and choose which audience can view which pages. So you can see the guest stock page. We have just the login component that we had used in our home page. And we have the stock news component. So when the admin drags and drop, you can see we also have a design attribute where we give the tags. So Calvin briefly mentioned, automotive news, or we can have business news, we can have energy-related news. So this is where we set what news the user is going to see.
The unauthenticated user will see.
Yeah, right. And if we go to the other stock page, which is a variation of this page, you can see we have the welcome banner, we have the same component, and we have given the same tag. We have the stock information. Again, this is also has a design attribute where we give it the ticker symbol of your company stock news. So since we have given CRM, it pulls in Salesforce stock information, and we just have a rich content editor here. So you see with pretty much drags and drops or page level variations, it's very powerful. It personalizes what your users see when they log into your community.
All right, I'm sure you guys are intrigued about that stock news component. Let me tell you a little bit more about it. So we've made this component not actually, as Hemant just showed you, configurable by the admin. Well, we also want our users to be able to see and control what they see on this component, because we understand that not everybody wants to learn about energy. Some people want to learn about automotive. Some people want to learn about IT. We can control that using our user records. So if we could go up into our profile. In this case, Hemant is logged in already. Click on my profile. We have a pretty standard profile page where you're able to change your image, change your email, keep track of any chatter posts that you've made. But on the bottom of the page, we've embedded a very specific Lightning component, or in this case, it's a flow component. And this flow component allows you to customize your interests. So it starts by greeting you with your current interest. So right now it's set to automotive. You have a next button that you can control and change what you want to see. So automotive isn't as fun. Let's learn about business.
Sure, why not?
So once you click business, it will then give you a confirmation of what you've just selected on the top portion of the screen. And then also embeds a Lightning component, a small green checkbox into this component to show that the user has successfully completed this flow.
Yeah, just wanted to point out it's pretty powerful. Our Lightning component is only a checkbox, but imagine you can have Lightning components embedded in your flow at every step or whatever step you want. So that is pretty powerful.
Right, any graphs, anything that you've built existing that's been built already, you can natively embed these inside of your flow components.
So let's see what changes have been done since we changed our tags. So if you go back to the stock page, you can see now we have news related to business, and there are more headlines here. So that's how we allowed the user to change what they want to see at the stock news.
Right. Yeah. So I'm sure a lot of developers you guys want to see the money. So let's take a look at how the data model looks like.
Sure.
All right. So the first thing we in order to initiate this process, we have a Lightning Flow component. So this is the process where you will gauge the user's interest. This is the process where you will survey the user, and we're going to pull in that data and store it inside of interest__C. And you'll see in a second, and that data then gets pushed into the user record. Again, you have the user record. We have a name field. We have an interest field and an email field. And you will see that there's a bidirectional arrow. And this means that any changes that you make to the Lightning component Lightning flow process will be propagated to the user record, and any changes made to the user record will also get reflected inside of the flow component. And then finally, the last step is obviously to render that data to your user, and that's where the newsfeed component comes in. So the newsfeed component will access that interest__C custom field that you've then stored inside of the user record, and it'll propagate that into your component itself.
let's look at the flow, maybe.
Yeah.
That'll be great. Yeah.
Let's do
Like
that.
how we've built the user customization flow.
Sure.
Yeah. So.
Yep. Open up the flow customization for the customized user record. And the first thing I want you guys to take a note of is that we have about 5 tiles here, but the upper left-hand corner tile has a little green circle inside of it. And what that is it tells the flow builder that this is your first process of your entrance to the flow. So in this process, we want to obviously get the user record. So you're going to do that by looking up, you're going to retrieve the user based on the user ID, which is your currently logged in user. And you're going to query the database for where the ID is equal to the currently logged in user. After that, you want to then store in your custom field. In this case, it's interest__C. And we're going to store that inside of user interests. User interest is actually a local variable that we've used to keep track of the entire flow process. So throughout the flow, it will have visibility of user interests, and you can reference that variable anytime throughout your flow process steps. From then on, this is the part where we design the user screen. This is where the user gets to see what their current interests are. So again, we reference user interests on the first line. And then we also give it a quick prompt for the user to click next to customize their interests. Following that, this is the screen that we actually capture the user data. So you've noticed that there was a bunch of pre-populated fields inside of that multi-select pick list. And where those values are coming from is coming from a global pick list that is stored inside of the setup menu. And it references that by calling associated tags __C. From then on, it will get propagated to the front end, and the user will then be able to select from any of those pick lists on that menu. And then after selecting, we will then store the choices into another local variable called interest. And this is the variable that we'll actually be storing back into the user record later on. Following that, we then do another lookup based on the user again. So we'll do user where the ID is equal to the currently logged in user. And then we're going to store interested tags, which was that variable that we just populated in the last step, and push that into the interest__C custom field inside of our user record. And finally, after you've done all of that, you want to confirm that the flow process has been completed. So again, we're going to reference that local variable that we just got from this third step. We're going to summarize what the user has selected, and then finally embed a Lightning component, which is in this case the green checkbox that you guys saw. We call that header finish, and we're going to then embed that inside of our Lightning component flow screen.
Right.
All right, so that's the flows. I'm sure a lot of you developers still aren't satisfied yet. You guys want to see some code, so we'll go ahead and do that. So this is our component, our Apex controller code for our newsfeed component. So I want you to take a look at line 8 and line 13. We have an if statement right there. And what that is it's actually going to query for the user record. And it's going to make a decision on whether the user already has fields populated. So if the interested tags, which is that referencing the field interested tags __C, if it's null or if it's blank, we want to query for, if it's not blank, we want to query for what those records are. So once you have that, we're going to then generate the query, and then finally make a database query on line 20, which will return a list of post components that we will then render to the front end. So if we take a look at our component code, scroll down just a bit. Yep. On line 16 to line 28, we have an order iteration loop. And what this is, it's going to take in our list that we just retrieved in from that controller code, and it's going to do an order iteration through each of those items in that list. And what it's going to do, it's going to reference each of those fields and render it out to the front end. So you'll notice that we have markup that's very similar to any standard HTML, CSS markup, is that we're going to render each field as a list element such that we can then display that to the user. So it doesn't really matter how many posts that you've retrieved, it will always render, and it will always be consistent, and it will render properly.
Yeah. And if you remember, we also had a stock information component. So what that does is we again have an Apex controller which does a REST call, a REST GET call to one of the third-party APIs, which just gives you the current stock information. So we call that endpoint. We give them the ticker symbol, which we had set in our community builder. It gives that information, takes back the current stock price, gives it to the component UI, and we display it similar to how we did here. All right, so we talked about creating communities, audience targeting, how you can customize it for your users. I did mention something about lightning bolt solutions. So that's a technology that you can use to package your solution. So let's say we want to use this, and probably why not monetize it? Let's say we create a package out of it. We want to deploy it to all of our users, create a service around it, and then charge for it.
Yep.
So the technology, as I mentioned, is lightning bolt solution. So the first step is building a community that we already have done. So we build all our pages using the builder. After we have done all of that, we go back to the builder and you see something called settings. We go in the settings and we go into the developer tab. So here you see there's something called export a template. So what this will do is it will take all your customizations, all your pages, and it will bundle it into a metadata called Lightning Community Templates. So let's see what are the steps here. You just give it a name, you give it a category, you'll give a small thumbnail image, a summary, certain features, and you click export. So I've already done the export for time's sake, and I'll show you how it looks. So I've already done an export of this community. So if we go back to our setup and go to Lightning Community Templates, you can see this was the metadata that got created after I click export on the builder. And this will have all the pages, all the components, and all the other customizations that we have added to the community. So after doing an export, the next logical step is we go to packages, we go to our package manager, and we create a new package. So I've already created a new test package, which is blank right now. Once we create the package, we can add components to it. So let's say we want to add our Lightning Community template. So you can see here there's a drop-down called component type. We go and search for our metadata type, which should be Lightning Community template. And you can see the one which we had exported and we saw in our setup menu. So I'll just select this and I'll say add it to my package. So what happens is it adds all the things that were a part of the package. You can see all the Lightning pages that we had created have been added. You can also probably see the custom fields, the page layouts, which are associated with our custom objects, all the custom objects. Our Lightning components have been added. So this is pretty much ready to go, and the next step is we click upload. So once we upload, it creates an unmanaged version of your package. So unmanaged is a package where all your IP is not a namespace. So if you know what namespaces are, they are like prefixes to your API names. So the way you can access your information is through those tags. Once you upload and create a managed version, you can then, if you're already a partner, if you're not a partner, you can register as a partner on your partner community, and you can upload your package on App Exchange. App Exchange is the place where all the customers go to see all the solutions that have been pre-built for them, and that way you can also monetize by putting a price to it. So this was the end-to-end stuff that we did. We started with the concept, we created our community, personalized it, and now you can also package it and give it to your customer. So we covered a lot of content today. I wanted to highlight some of the things that we achieved here in our demo. So the first one was we really personalized our community at 3 different levels. So if you remember our homepage, we did an audience targeting at the component levels. So we chose which component should be visible to which user. And at the page level, we actually created different pages, and we assigned different pages to different users. In the Lightning component itself, we did a data level personalization where depending on what users are logging in, they could only see the headlines or they could see all the information related to the stock feed. Lightning flow. So we use flows for 2 majority things. First one was user configuration. So we let our users choose which news they are interested in. So we use flow to automate that. And the second was to create a case. So we did some process automation using our flows. Lightning components. So Lightning components are really powerful, especially in a Lightning experience. You only built it once, and you can use it multiple times. So we had, please log in header component. We only built it once, but we used it in different pages. So that saves you a lot of development time. Customizations, Lightning components, or any code allows you to do a lot of customization that you wouldn't get normally with drag and drops. And just bringing it home, Lightning Bolt Solutions. This is a technology out of the box with communities that you can use to package your solution and then also make it reusable. At the end, we want to give out some best practice and recommendations. We do work with a lot of ISV partners, and they often come to us, how do I go about, creating all these solutions? What are the best practices? So we thought, why not go over those? So if you have been using communities, or if you know what communities are, there are majorly two types of communities. One is the visual force communities, where you have lots of visual force pages, and you have the standard tabs. And the other one is the Lightning community. So we use Lightning communities today, where we use our Lightning builder. So Lightning communities are very powerful, and I don't have to be an expert to tell you that Lightning is the future. Pretty much we have all our technologies and investment in the Lightning side of things. So Lightning communities are great. You get a lot of features out of the box, like the audience targeting that we did, the branding and theming that we did for different pages. So that's all out of the box. Lightning components. Developers sometimes can get carried away, to achieve the level of customization that you want. But it's always important to remember that everything that you build should be secure. Trust is our number one value. So always remember, there are two technologies around Lightning components that we have for security. One is content security policy, and the other is locker service. So whenever you are building your components or code, make sure it's 40, API version 40 and above, so it follows locker service, and always test your components for security. Following the best practices, so I think Calvin briefly mentioned about CRUD FLS. So whenever you are developing your code, make sure only the users who are supposed to access certain things can access those things.
Yep.
Flows, so funny story, Calvin can tell you, when we were building out flows, we didn't have a clear idea on the one of the flows, so we ended up having like 15, 20 versions of the flow.
Close to 40.
Yeah. So it's always important to plan ahead. That way, you don't go back to your flow, create new versions. So it's always better.
I can tell you it's very dynamic, but you want to plan it out first before you start and build the whole flow process.
Yeah. And it's also important to test it after that to make sure everything is working in the way you wanted. And again, we showed how you can embed Lightning components in flows. This was something which is, I think, new from the previous release that we had. So you can go wild with your imagination. You can use Lightning components to automate a lot of stuff in your flows. And finally, Lightning Bolt solutions. So if you are looking, again, to monetize your community solution, you want to provide a simple deployment method, then you can use Lightning Bolt solutions and make use of App Exchange as a medium to distribute your apps. So that was pretty much our session. Just a reminder, please give us our feedback. It's pretty valuable. It helps us improve for our next event.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, please
we'll be
walk
happy
up to
to
the mic
answer
and
those.
we'll answer them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.